Bernie, we put 10 on the roof.
Yeah. Hey, I'll give you a little background on what I know about this resort. This is north of Kenora, Ontario, and it was close to 100 years ago now that the original owner of the resort came up to the area and decided to build a resort on this lake because it was right near where the Canadian National Railway cut across through the wilderness up there. There wasn't much of a road at that time, but he came up here and thought that he could get his clients to these resorts that he was going to build by rail. And so he built a resort on the shore of East Lake and then later built this one on the island, and is all built out of logs, local logs and local rocks, and it was all put together at that time. And then he ran these resorts until about 2000 when he just became too old and his son was murdered in 2009, and then he died in 2011. So the resort was no longer used after about the year 2000, except there was just a few clients that would come up once a year and they would open up the resort just for them in the early 2000s. Shortly after the original owner passed away, the family decided to sell the resort, and a couple brothers from Winnipeg bought the properties. One of them bought the resort on the shore and the other one bought the resort on the island, and it is just sitting as it was left about 20 years ago. Yeah, this looks like people just walked away like 30 years ago or something.
Yeah. The old man. Remember the fire here in 86 or 85 or whatever.
Wilson's Resort on, what is there a name for this island? We're in East Lake, north of Kenora. 30 miles north of Kenora. Is there an actual name for this island or not, or just
No, just Wilson's Island,
All right.
Jones, Ontario.
pretty cool? Fun to see.
Yeah.